Why can't I cut? Oh no, I'm censored. So guys, I decided to go ahead and clean up my language at least a little bit for these WandaVision videos, you know, the bigger ones that are gonna reach a little more people. That's not what's important. What is important is, oh boy, we have got a great episode tonight. Man, I thought episode 4 had a bunch of crap to like cover and go over. Woo. Man, that was just, you know, chump change compared to what this is. Okay, so of course I'm going to go ahead and preface this by saying I'm going to spoil all of episode 5, probably several things from the last few episodes. So if you haven't seen the show, go ahead and watch that. If you want to, go ahead and watch my videos. It'll kind of fill you in on my theory and, you know, where everything is, what I feel about the show. After you do that, make sure you come back. Let me know what you think about my theories, if you think I'm correct, or, you know, what you think could be different, or what kind of questions you have. You know, I mean, it helps me make these videos, and on top of that, I love to hear what you guys think. You know, I love, you know, when y'all give me some new information that I had no idea about. It's the best. But guys, without further ado, we got to get into this bombshell of an episode. So something brought up in the comments on my video for episode 4 was, why is this whole show set in New Jersey? And I realized after doing a little bit of research that Wonder Man actually is born in New Jersey, and so is his brother, the Grim Reaper, which actually kind of comes into play a little bit later. But it's interesting to me because I believe that Nathan Fillion was cast as Wonder Man a long time ago, and it never really was confirmed what for or where he was going to be introduced, so maybe? So one of the first things that I noticed is that this episode is a lot longer, and I'm totally down with it. I mean, I've been wanting more content from the episodes anyway, so I'm here for it. Gimme. But right when we jump into it, I noticed that the color kind of looks desaturated and kind of drained out to match that style of the, you know, Roseanne era. And it looked pretty cool, but it kind of looked a little weird seeing Vision with his colors so toned down. But they don't waste a second of this episode in getting into the meat of it. Right off the bat, we notice that she can't control the baby. She can't, you know, just use her magic to put them asleep like she's trying to. And it feels almost as if it's like you got a product and it wasn't as advertised, or you didn't read the fine print. It's kind of like the stork in episode 3, where, you know, she tried to kind of poof it away and it just brushed it off. It's like the babies, she has no effect on them whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure that it's because they come from Mephisto's life essence, and that's how they were born in the first place. I don't think that she has control over them because they have control over themselves, as does Mephisto. And Agnes is just kind of there watching over everything. Kind of the assistant, you know, like if you need anything, ask her, she can get it for you. And so that's kind of how Wanda uses her in this episode. And in previous episodes too, it's like, oh, I need something, or something is going on like this, and Agnes all of a sudden shows up with a solution. And it started in episode 1 with the dinner, and it happened several times in this episode, and Vision kind of started to get tipped off to it, and it kind of really starts to make him think. Though when she showed up this time, she said that it's because she could hear the babies not being able to sleep. And, you know, it's meant to be a throwaway joke like everything else is in this episode, but it's clearly not. And it seems almost like Wanda called out to her. And this is kind of proven when Vision does, you know, the normal parent thing, kind of freaks out. Oh, when's the last time you washed your hands? You know, make sure you hold the head up and, you know, be careful of the belly button, all that stuff. And she like completely breaks character and is like, hey, you want to, you know, take that from the top? You know, she acts like, she's like, you wanted me to hold the baby. And so it's kind of confusing because it's like, well, does she know what's going on? Or is she kind of under this spell too? Agnes kind of has a little bit of development in this episode that really kind of throws me on her character. It makes me think, I thought I knew everything there was to know about her, but there's clearly a lot more that meets the eye. So Wanda convinces Vision that everything's fine, and, you know, Agnes can hold the baby, it's all good, and everything seems to go back to normal, but Vision is really suspicious of everything that's going on. He's like, nah, something ain't right. Did you see that? I mean, what was all that about? But Wanda's sitting there just, she's completely in denial. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, everything's fine. You know, she was just a little confused. She's fine. Even though she was sitting there just like, oh yeah, we need to take that from the top, like acting like she wasn't even a person. It was really weird. So while they're discussing this, the kids go silent and they go check the cribs to see them sleeping, and what do you know, they're not there. They're actually behind them, and they've aged themselves up. And, you know, at first it seems like, oh, they just are growing really fast, but it's proven later in the episode that they are aging themselves up. They have the ability, and they're doing it by choice. So it makes me curious that, did they choose to do it right then when they were babies? And also, if so, does that mean that they chose to grow themselves faster in her belly? And it seems almost as though they're racing to grow up and go back to Mephisto. So now they're basically like 5 years old, and it's kind of a little weird because they can fully talk and they're fully cognitive. And we actually do see them kind of grow up. And oddly enough, we see Vision grow up, like a little baby Vision. It's kind of cute. In the Roseanne intro that it gives us, that comes right after. And it's almost as if they've lived a life throughout, you know, from being a baby to 5 years old. But we just saw that they skipped all of that. So it's a little weird. It's like, you know, the intro kind of shows Wanda's ideal, but not exactly what is. So I guess I was wrong on one thing. We aren't getting, you know, so many S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes and so many WandaVision episodes. They are straight up merging them with this one. We cut to Monica, and she's being, you know, scanned and everything. They're asking her what happened, how did it feel. She says it feels hopeless and like you're drowning, and she could just feel constant grief, which is in line with, you know, Wanda making this because she's grieving over everything. But then they come back and they show that the scans are completely blank, and it's like, you know, they got flashed with something or something, and, you know, that kind of pretty much confirms that Monica did get her powers and is now basically, you know, gonna start to become Photon once she got thrown through that barrier. Next, there's a briefing, and they kind of go over Wanda's past, her whole history with, you know, Lagos and Sokovia, all that crazy stuff. And the director of sorts seems to be kind of making her out to be a villain. And they're saying, you know, oh, he's kind of a but, I mean, his words kind of have merit, especially because, like, right after that, they reveal that Wanda, I mean, straight up took Vision from S.W.O.R.D. Like, they had his body, and it looked like they were disassembling it. And so that answers my question of where Vision's body was and whether or not he's being puppeteered. And that shows that he probably is being puppeteered and is a lifeless husk of what he was. And they had him completely deconstructed. So what I believe is that Wanda got his pieces, brought them there, rebuilt him, and resurrected him like they say she did, except not exactly. I think that Mephisto and her are just giving him life, kind of like how they are with the children. I do believe he's, like, alive and sentient, but I don't think that has life and is a living being right now. I think that the Vision we knew, gone. But the Vision that Wanda loved and wanted back, you know, that illusion of Vision, is kind of walking around, no strings on me style.
There are no strings on me.
But this does bring me to a point. I mean, why didn't the director say anything to them in the last episode when they were trying to figure out, you know, oh, what's going on? You know, why is Vision there? Isn't he dead? You know, why was nothing brought up? I mean, it says that he just got clearance. That's total BS, man. I mean, come on. So then we cut back to the world of WandaVision, and we see that the kids are actually hiding something, and it's none other than Sparky, who's actually a dog from the comics. And when I said the Grim Reaper kind of comes into play later, the reason that is because Vision, the whole reason he made Sparky in the comics was to kind of console the family after they discovered Grim Reaper's body in the backyard of their house. But none of that really is mentioned in this episode, so it really begs the question, where did Sparky come from? Did the kids create him? Was it a manifestation of Mephisto? What was it? You know what I mean? If you guys have any ideas for that, let me know in the comments. So Vision is hiding himself as a human, and, you know, he says, well, it's because I feel like something's going to pop up. And right on cue, Agnes shows up, and he's like, oh, and she probably has exactly what we need, of course. And she does. It's a doghouse. And she supposedly saw, like, right through the kitchen window that, you know, they had a new dog, but, you know, I'm not buying that for a second. She clearly, you know, I think she has something to do with the dog showing up in the first place. So then we get a small bit where Wanda actually creates Sparky's collar from thin air right in front of Agnes, and she doesn't hide it. She doesn't care. And Vision's like, dude, what did you just do? Like, hello? And he, kind of starts to feel a drift between the two of them. And, there's definitely a divide in their ideals right now. They do have a small debate on whether or not they can keep the dog or not. And this is when they tell him, not until you're 10 years old. And it's confirmed that they are aging themselves up because they straight up just look at each other like, all right, and grow up to 10 years old with some of the worst CGI I've seen in Marvel in a while. Sorry, I love the show, but... Then we cut back to outside Westview, and we see that Monica is, trying to figure out how to get in there without, completely losing herself and be able to actually be cognitive and know what the hell is going on. And she says that she's going to call an aerospace engineer that could probably take on the math and figure it out. But she doesn't get the chance to before they decide that, hey, the hex barrier might just throw you out. And they are finally calling it the hex barrier now. While they're talking about the barrier and what it actually might or might not do, Wu says, hey, what about the twins? Are they, who are they? And, Monica confirms that, no, those are her twins. They came from her. I birthed them. And, all the things in there, they seem fake on the TV, but they are real. And they discuss that, there's no way that she's doing that. There's no way that stuff is real, because if it were to be real, she would be harnessing an insane amount of power. I mean, an amount of power
hitherto undreamt.
Definitely more than she's ever exerted before, that's for sure. They do debate for a second on, her being the only one who got anywhere close to defeating Thanos. Wu says, hey, Captain Marvel could have, and it's kind of a little, like, shade thrown at Monica, it seems like, weirdly. But one thing that did make me think about when they said, she was the closest one to defeating Thanos, was that, okay, so she was in the Endgame fight. I almost completely forgot about that. She was there, and she was at the funeral. So that means that they say that she took Vision's body 9 days ago, before all of this craziness started in the show. So that would mean that the week and a half between the battle at the end of Endgame and the time and when she got Vision's body, she would have had to go and seek out Mephisto and then, make the deal with him and then immediately go grab Vision's body, take him to Westview, and they set everything up. So boom, there's that question answered. One thing I did catch during this scene was that on the board, they now have an ID on the mailman, which means that he is a resident of the town that, is under the illusion. But they still don't have any info on Agnes, and I still did not see a card anywhere for Dottie. So there's something going on with her. I just can't figure it out. And it's bugging the hell out of me. Please, if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. So after realizing that things are actually becoming real in this reality, they go and they check out the outfit that Monica got thrown out in. And they realize it's completely bulletproof. That it turned from the bulletproof vest that she was wearing when she got sucked in. So that means that Wanda is rewriting reality at will as soon as it gets into that town. And so they decide to go ahead and send in something that wouldn't need to be changed. They first go ahead and send an email through to Vision, basically warning him of what's going on and of what they call the Maximoff anomaly, the whole town. And later in the form of an 80s drone, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because when Vision reads this email, like, everybody reads it at the same time, and it's really eerie because they all kind of just like monotone read it like this, and then as soon as they finish, they all crack up and there's a laugh track. And he decides to use his powers on the computer, and then he uses his powers to break Norm out from this illusion. And Norm is like, dude, it hurts. He just wants to get out. He asks Vision, please break me out. He's scrambling, looking for his phone. He wants to just contact his family. He's worried about his father, who's sick. And Vision, kind of panicking under the situation, puts him back under and decides he needs to go back home. And meanwhile, at home, we see that Wanda is kind of trying to convince the kids, Vision had work. Your dad had work. He had to go in. It was an emergency, because they're like, hey, it's Saturday. He wasn't supposed to go into work today. So then when they're trying to get some comfort from her, they're, asking, hey, did you ever have a brother? And she goes, yeah, I did. And she's about to talk to him about it, it seems, and then all of a sudden Sparky just kind of starts freaking out, and he's like real scared about something at the door. At this point, Wanda doesn't seem to have any idea what's going on. It seems like she's completely losing control of the whole reality and illusion, and she does not like that. It is very clear. Especially when they send in that 80s drone, because they try to get in contact with her, you know, hey Wanda, can you hear me? We just want to talk, that's all. And it's Monica over the speaker, but the director, once she sees Wanda, you know, kind of tilt her head and her eyes go red and she's clearly, you know, about to take the drone out or something, the director says, take the shot. And Monica's like, dude, what the f***? It wasn't armed. It wasn't supposed to be anyway. And so then there's a breach and everybody's, you know, panicking. There's alarms going off like crazy. They go to check the barrier and holy crap, we actually see Wanda step out of the barrier. And she's got the drone just like dragging it in her hand. She's clearly, you know, completely decimated it. So she throws it at their feet and she basically is there to pretty much warn them, stay the hell out of my home. Leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. And she's actually in her modern suit. She's not, you know, in the 80s suit or anything like that. She's not in, you know, an old version of the Scarlet Witch costume or nothing. It's her suit, like, I think from Endgame. So she sees that Monica is there and, you know, seemingly okay, and she starts to power up her magic. She's clearly pissed, and then, you know, Monica's like, I'm only trying to help. I'm just a friend. And she says, you know, what do you want? How can I help you? And Wanda straight tells her, I mean, I have everything I want, and no one's ever going to take it from me again. And then she turns around, goes to the barrier, and she, like, rips it back open, and it turns the entire thing like this corrupted, glitchy red. It's kind of cool looking, but really, really chilling and scary. Then, boom, cuts to an ad, and it shows us Lagos paper towels. And Lagos, if you don't remember, that's where she, you know, had that accident at the beginning of Civil War that kind of kicked it off and made them want to put the Sokovia Accords into action. And one crazy thing I did notice in this ad is that the family in the ads is kind of seeming to grow with Wanda and Vision's family. You know, now they had another kid. In the last one, they had one kid, and in the two before that, they didn't have any kids. But the only other thing I really noticed about the ad is it says something kind of messed up at the end, because it says, Lagos, for when you make a mess that you didn't mean to. And it's like, oh man, that's cold. So then, unfortunately, Sparky goes missing, and the mailman says, oh, you know, your mom won't let him get far, and she really doesn't seem to know where he is. She straight up says, I really don't know. Then Agnes says, you know, she found him in some azalea bushes, and, you know, I think that's a total load of crap. I'm pretty sure that there definitely was some sort of, you know, malicious, ominous intent behind his death, because, like, I think that it was pretty much to, like, kind of force the kids to want to age up themselves, because I think that Mephisto wants them to age up all the way, because once they grow up, they're going to be out of there, and they, you know, are going to kind of merge with Mephisto. And, you know, Wanda actually stops them and says, hey, no, don't age up. And it seems kind of like, you know, she just wants to cherish the time with them while they're children, you know, and get to enjoy it, which I do think is partially true. But I think a big part of it is because once they grow up, that's going to be the end of it, and kind of going to be the series finale, so to speak. And whatever happened had to have happened while Wanda left the barrier. Like, it kind of shows that she's kind of running this place, and the second she leaves, something's going to go wrong. And that's why I think if it wasn't to age the kids up, it may have been to teach her a lesson, like, hey, I don't care that they're trying, or we won't let them in, just don't leave this place. So, you know, the kids are like, hey, you know, you can fix death, you know, you can bring him back, please help us, bring Sparky back. And she kind of gives this speech about, you know, how death shouldn't be something that's changed, and it's clearly, you know, kind of like a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing, because obviously what she's done with Vision. And, you know, it's kind of sad because you can tell that she doesn't want them to be corrupted like she is. And she seems to know that she's doing wrong, but she's just repressing it and doesn't want to admit it to herself or anyone else. Agnes seems concerned for a split second that the kids mentioned that, but she kind of brushes it off. So, you know, I think that it was just kind of to play it up like, oh, you can do that? What? So then we see when Vision finally gets home and he confronts Wanda about what's going on. He's like, hey, you know, like he knows what's up. He's like, I talked to Norm, you know, without him under your spell. He's scared, you know, he wants to go home. Like, he doesn't hold back anything, man. And he straight up says, you know, like, no, we're not going to just go watch TV and, you know, go to bed so you can just change everything overnight again. He knows that she's changing everything every night and that, you know, the eras are like, you know, just going whenever she's dissatisfied. He does say, you know, you can't control me like you can control everybody else. And she straight up looks at him like, can't I? Rolls the dang credits on him. Like, what a freaking power move. But, I mean, this kind of plays into one of the best scenes in the episode. So she walks away and, you know, she's trying to ignore the whole thing. He's like, hey, what is the Maximoff anomaly? And, you know, he's hoping that she was kind of unwilling and, you know, unwitting at first and that she didn't know what she was doing and just kind of, you know, fell in love with the illusion. But, you know, she seems to kind of just, you know, be in denial of it all and seem like she doesn't have any idea. And he's just pissed that she's doing this to people, like completely pissed. And she says, you know, I don't know what you're talking about. And he flies up in the air out of anger. Says, stop lying to me, dude. Like, he is mad. But she flies right up to him, bucks right back. And I mean, she's like, dude, this was all for us, man. And he says, you know, what is out there? What's outside Westview? And she says, you don't want to know. He says, you don't get to make that choice for me. You know, he wants his free will back. He's doesn't like being puppeteered and not knowing who he is and what's going on. Which, I mean, who would? Things kind of start to simmer down, and he kind of, you know, starts to try to get a little more calm. But then he goes, hey, wait, why aren't there any children in Westview? And she gets kind of upset. Like, really, you think that I'm doing all this? How can I do all this? You know, basically says, I couldn't be doing all this. It's insane. I mean, she claims she doesn't even know how it all started, which I don't believe at all. But then the doorbell rings. And who it is, man. Oh, I'm so freaking happy. Because, okay, so she doesn't know who it is. Vision doesn't believe her. But they go to check. And who is it? Freaking Evan Peters, man. They straight up... It's the first mutant in the MCU. The first X-Men. Like for real X-Men. Like, I mean, okay, yeah, Wanda's a mutant. There was already a Quicksilver. But, like, this is the first official Fox crossover. Guys, they did it. I am so stoked, you guys. I can't even wait. I mean, just the amount of possibilities behind the door that has just been flung open with this episode. Like, oh, I'm so happy. Once Darcy Lewis's character sees this, she actually says, you know, oh my God, they recast Pietro. She recast Pietro, but, you know, I think we all know this is part of the multiverse of madness. They're finally bringing it all together. This is how they're going to bring mutants into the MCU. Oh, you guys. Oh, guys, this is such an awesome show. I'm so excited to see where they're going with it. I'm so excited that I followed it and that, you know, we're on this journey together. Oh, man. I cannot wait for next week. But alright, guys, that's the end of the episode, and so that's the end of this video. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a like at the bottom. It definitely helps out the channel. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and share it with somebody you know. You know, let's get the word out. Let's get some theories going in those comments. I want to see, you know, what y'all think about this show and where y'all think everything's going to be going in the future. If you enjoy this series, make sure you hit that notification bell so you know of all the next ones that come out, because I'm going to be covering every episode from here to the finale. I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this week's video, and y'all have a spectacular day.